Good morning, friends, and welcome to Unlock with Bradford. Bradford is a licensing agency which is 30-year-old firm, started in New York and then in London and now in India for last 13 years. So this is a special show which we do every Thursday, 11 o'clock, where we talk about licensing as an industry, how it is changing, how it is evolving. We try to talk about a lot of best practices, which is happening in India, globally. We talk about a lot of IPs which are now getting aggressive, the kind of potential licensees, the kind of business which we are getting in the market. So this is a show which we also present sometimes, newer opportunities which are available for licensing. But today I have a special guest, Harsh. Harsh, who's obviously a young founder of a company called the Soul Store. So it all started with Harsh finding a problem. And this problem was actually anybody who's young and who's growing always wanted to have original merchandise. And that's something which actually stuck with Harsh also, because he saw that there was a not only opportunity for him to really get these kind of thing as a fan, but more importantly, I think this was a significant business opportunity. And that's how the business really started. Now they have 150 top licenses available, from Disney's to Marvel's to DC Comics, Harry Potter. And we were, before this webinar started, he was talking about the story about Friends, how he launched a Friends. Friends is a classic IP, and now the kind of response they got was phenomenal. And they also run a lot of cricket teams, Game of Thrones, almost every top license currently they manage. So we'll happy to have you, Harsh, on the show of Unlock Brand with Bradford. You are a very client of ours, and I would like to start with you talking about taking us through your journey of Soul Store, and more importantly, your own journey, how it really started, and some of the success stories, some of the failures, some of the areas which you felt was difficult in the market, and at what stage you see licensing at this stage. Is the customer evolved to a level where he's looking forward for authorized merchandise coming from these for superheroes or other characters? So over to you, Harsh.
Okay, sure. So I'll actually quickly go over why the Soul Store, right? Not just from the business opportunity, but what was our idea behind it. I think the reason we started the Soul Store, right, sounds a bit cliched, but to be very honest, none of us liked our jobs, right? None of us liked what we were doing. We were always waking up thinking, okay, when can I quit this job? When can I do something fun? When can I do something that I really like, right? So I think the one thing all of us had in common was finding that one thing that you really, really like doing and going ahead with it. To just take you back a couple of years, I've done multiple things, right, in life. I've studied science, I've studied law, I've done advertisement internships, I've done journalism internships, I've done a 6-month tattooing course as well. The one thing I was very clear through these multiple career changes that I had was that I'm going to keep trying things till I find what I really like. And I think that's pretty much what the spirit or the philosophy of the Soul Story is as well. Where we are very, very clear that anyone who's a part of our organization should actually look forward to coming to office on a Monday morning, right? If you're going to be unhappy every Monday morning, you're not going to give it your best shot. So I think that's the kind of philosophy that I've personally always lived by in my life, and that's something we try sticking to every single day at the Soul Store. Coming to the business side of it, right? Why we actually got into licensing. All four of us were actually pop culture nerds, right? Between the four of us, we like almost all the properties that we have, whether it's cartoons, Star Wars, superheroes, cricket, music, comedy, etc., etc. All of us were fans of these things, right? But we realized that there was a massive, massive sort of gap where you either had to pay a huge amount of money to get one of your relatives from abroad to buy you that T-shirt, or you basically find like a second hand or like a fake product in the Indian market where you can't be sure of the product or the quality. There was no one was kind of fulfilling this gap between a good looking product, a great design and quality at a price that you can actually afford, right? And that was the kind of massive gap that we saw, that we wanted to fulfill as fans. Back to 2014, about 6 years ago, we first got the Friends license. It was a wildly successful license for us. We obviously didn't know what to expect. Right? It's the first license. None of us have ever really had any experience in the e-commerce or the apparel space. So a lot of mistakes, obviously, a lot of new learnings for us. But I think that coincided with Friends coming back on television again, and I think we got really, really lucky with our timing. From then, like you mentioned, we got one more license, one more license, one more license, and we've now grown to more than 150 national and international licenses. Yeah, I mean, so it's definitely been a great journey for us. I think when you obviously started off, we didn't know how to go about the whole licensing process. But the one thing that we were sure of is that character merchandise or pop culture merchandise is what the idea behind the Soul Store is, and that's always going to be front and center of what our core philosophy as a business is.
Sure. So there is a presentation, Vatsal. You want Harsh, you want to take through the presentation, or Vatsal is?
I think Vatsal can. I mean, yeah, I think I've kind of given
Yeah,
like a
Harsh, if you can
brief
just
overview, and yeah, there's some stats, some interesting stats, and a couple of highlights from our journey over the last 7 or so years.
And this all has been achieved in the kind of reach you've created. Is reached, and your Alexa rating is about 1300 India rank, which is
Yes,
among the top sites in the country. And 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 now let's get into, I think, more on discussion of how this whole business is transforming, and where do you see the business really shifting from, and how is the last particular 2 to 3 years, how the customer has evolved, and what
sure.
is the ask currently, and also talk about a little TG. This is a beautiful portfolio they have. It's almost every leading brands in the world, IPs in the world they have working with, and this is very, very diversified. And they have been actually both in terms of going conventional and also experimenting. A lot of experiments they have done, and we'll come to this piece a little later in terms of what has worked, what has not worked. And this is a good slide. Keep it there, Vatsal. And let's but first start with last 3 years. What has been the changes you saw in the consumer, and what is the target groups you have?
Sure. So I think if we, like I mentioned, when we first started off, right, in about 2013 is when we went live with our organization. 2014 is when we launched our first license, which was Friends, right? We've actually seen a massive sort of evolution, not only in the kind of licenses and products that we've put out, but also in the consumer behavior. Back in 2013-14, I think there were still very, very limited options as far as licensed products or official licensed products were concerned. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of brands actually coming up and getting into the licensed merchandise space. It's definitely a very, very rapidly evolving space where almost every day or every other day, if you scroll through your news feed or you scroll through your social media, you will probably see an ad of some new company selling licensed merchandise, right? So there has definitely been a massive, massive sort of growth over the last couple of years. I think the barrier to entry is fairly low. So you're seeing a lot of new brands stepping in as well and getting licenses and putting official merchandise out. I think what is very, very important is to understand what your brand philosophy is, right? What your brand ethos is. So while we have a very, very diverse sort of portfolio of more than 150 licenses, we've always made sure that every new product or every new character that we launch on the website should overall go with the theme of our website. It should be something that a fan of the Soul Store wants to see on our website. So I think it's very, very important for brands who are starting off to understand who their TG is, what kind of philosophy or what kind of vision do they want to build for their brands, and do the particular licenses actually fit within that larger sort of agenda that they do have. As far as we are concerned, I think we've definitely seen a massive, massive growth personally in the licensed merchandise space. We've gone aggressively in the last couple of years getting more licenses. I think one of the top sort of things that we've done in the last 3 or 4 years is definitely with IPL teams. That's opened up a completely new audience for us, because I think the two biggest things in India are cricket and Bollywood. And these help you not only cut across tier one, tier two, tier three cities, but also demographics and regions. So that's done really, really well for us. It's definitely helped us acquire a lot of new customers as well. It's great for a brand as well to be associated with prestigious teams like Mumbai Indians, Chennai Super Kings, Kolkata Knight Riders, the Kings 11 Punjab team, and Rajasthan Royals, right? So that's been one of the major highlights from the last couple of years for us. And we actually have a couple of big licenses coming up in the next 2 or 3 months. I'm really, really tempted to drop a couple of names, but I just request you guys to stay patient. There's a couple of really, really big licenses that you'll see in the next 2 to 3 months on the Soul Store.
Absolutely fabulous journey, and I think to even get the whole aggregation of so much of brands and getting the IPs and evolution. And my next question is really about how do you really evolve the story about it, and what is the criteria for selection of a new IP when you're looking to do that? and give us some kind of failures also, because every time it's not success. Friends was a great success, and
Sure.
Friends actually is a classic brand, and somehow it gets very clearly, and I've seen the classics have done very well in India.
Sure.
Sometimes cutting edge entire thing, which also can signify how mature we are in licensing. So fundamentally, we still feel that we are very classic in nature. So what has not worked for you? Let's talk about that. And what is your criteria for when you do the portfolio and selection?
Sure. So a couple of things, right? Like, I think the most important question is how do you go about deciding whether or not to take a license, right? I think now, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, the licensing space has boomed significantly. There's a lot of new characters, right? Not just your standard movies and TV shows and sports teams. There are multiple sort of characters and IPs available for licensing. Sometimes we're even surprised that there are various brands that have actually come to India for licensing, right? The first couple of things that we see is, one is, are we going to beat the minimum guarantee, yes or no? We are very, very clear that we do not want to take on a license only for the brand value. It has to make commercial sense for us as well. And if we are confident that we can actually beat the MG and do justice to the license, only then will we take it. Talking about failures, right? I think one thing that we're very, very proud of is that we've beaten the minimum guarantee for every single of those 150 licenses that we've taken till date. So we've never not beaten MG expectations. And I think what really helps us kind of understand what the customer wants is being fans ourselves. So whether it's a design team, it's a marketing team, it's a customer care team, everyone, basically almost everyone at our organization is in the 21, 22 to 30 sort of age range. That's about 80 to 90% of our organization, right? Most of these people are familiar with the kind of properties we have. Most of them are pop culture fans themselves. So if it's something as simple as, you calling the customer care team or you emailing them asking where your order is, you will get a personalized reply with probably, like, say, like a Superman pun or like a Harry Potter pun, right? Like small things like these. But we make sure that when we're hiring people as well, right, we make sure that the people are familiar with the brand, familiar with the kind of licenses that we have, and we make sure that everyone is speaking that same pop culture language. uh, when I talk about how we measure success, right, in addition to making sure that we can commercially exploit the license, we also see what kind of brand value it's adding from a marketing point of view. So I think one of the reasons we've actually had the kind of success we've had is because most of our licensors, right, have worked hand in hand with us to also promote the brand. I think this is still something that's in a very, very nascent stage, where most people see licensing as the licensor giving the brand to a licensee, the licensee paying a minimum guarantee or a fee, and the licensee obviously exploiting it and making money off it, right? The one sort of major piece that's missing, or that's still not completely developed, is licensor support in actually building a brand in India. This is something that we've successfully explored with WWE, with the IPL teams, with Marvel, Turner, etc. Where over a couple of years, right, we've established the Soul Store as a brand that has not only commercially successfully exploited their IP, we've also projected their brand in the right way. We've gone over and above to make sure that there is that sort of sustained demand for merchandise. And we've now reached a position where the licensors work with us to actually market the brand and market the Soul Store. So even as a brand, it adds a lot of authenticity when a Marvel or a Disney or a Mumbai Indian says, "Hey fans, go to the Soul Store to buy official merchandise now." So I think that's one of the main sort of reasons we've been able to be successful, is the support we've derived from our licensors to push the brands.
No, very interesting, very interesting. And let's understand this whole mechanism for a lot of people who joined in would like to understand. And you can give a case not by specific brand, but
Sure.
what a lot of people don't understand how to really, understand and project MGs. While you've done a
Yes.
lot of, I can tell you that a lot of people who come to us who are just manufacturers and want to create a line, or they're trading on any of the digital platforms, they are very confused to how to predict the sales cycle. And give us
Sure.
an example of how you have done successfully, and you have come through on that thing. How do you really create some kind of maths or mathematics you would work on to predict the minimum guarantees, and and how do you really take the bandwidth of that? What is the range you gave, that this is my top side and this is my low side, and if
Sure.
you that still you sail out of the license program? Yeah.
Sure. So I think the first thing, like I said, is to understand, is there a demand or is there a sufficient demand for that specific character or that specific IP on our website, right? One thing that we track very, very closely as a brand is the kind of feedback we get from our customers, whether it's messages on social media, it's comments, it's emails, it's phone calls, right? Because we've now established ourselves as the number one brand for official merchandise in India. In fact, just to give you an example, right, when we do a post for, say, like Mumbai Indians, for example, buy the official Mumbai Indians jersey or buy the official CSK jersey, we get a lot of fans commenting saying, hey, can you also launch Sunrisers jerseys, right? Or hey, can you also launch RCB jerseys? That's because fans now associate us as their one-stop destination for pop culture merchandise or licensed merchandise. What we track very, very closely is the requests coming in for fans. This is something we do on a monthly basis. If we see consistently over 3, 4, 5, 6 months, there are certain properties or certain characters that fans are asking for, we definitely then go ahead, try finding out who has the license and initiate conversations. Also, I think because of where we are at as a brand now, almost on a daily or a weekly basis, we do get a lot of inquiries from agencies and brands directly regarding various new IPs they have, because they know that if you want to break into the market in India, you want to introduce a character. The source is a pretty safe bet to launch your character in India, right? Very, very simply put, how do we determine what MGs make sense and what our break even number is? Apparel has obviously been front and center of our product line, right? So if I have to put it very, very sort of bluntly or very crudely, we look at how many t-shirts can we sell in a day, right? Or how many t-shirts can we sell in a year, broadly, just to give us an estimate of what our sales would be. Accordingly, what kind of royalty percentage can we work out and what kind of MGs can we work out? Yes, there will always be like a plus minus 10, 20%. But two other very important factors are looking at the style guide, right? Understanding what kind of designs are available to us. Is there a limited set of designs or is there a vast set of designs, right? Do we have enough designs for us to continuously launch new things every couple of weeks? We function very differently from traditional retail, which has collections, right? You'll have a spring collection, a summer collection, an autumn and a winter collection. On our website, every single day you will find some new design being launched, right? And I think that's one of the reasons people like what we have, because whenever they come to the website, they will see a new product, they will see a new design, they will see a new style, and there is something new for them to look forward to. So we make sure that the style guide is also something that supports our need to make sure that we launch new designs on a regular basis. And the third, like I said, it's important to understand what the licensor's vision is for the country, right? There would be certain licensors whose sort of focus would be on getting the maximum number of licenses possible, so they would want to spread as wide as possible. On the other hand, there are certain licensors that would work with very, very limited licensees, but they will then offer those licensees a lot more support and help them grow their business. So it's also important to understand which of the two categories the license falls under, and accordingly figure what kind of MGs would make sense.
Sure, and I think that's what Bradford really does. Bradford advises our clients in terms of how to plan the program, and a lot of companies don't have really the kind of right kind of planning, and they fail in licensing. So a couple of things which are very important. One has to do is the lead time for running a program, and I think one has to really know that when you want to really do that, what season you want to target, and sometimes like if you're doing a sports licensing, what time you want to really bring the merchandise back in the market, how you excite that. Second, I think what Harsh said, style guide, how well developed the style guide is, what kind of application you can do that, and how can you closely work with the IP owners to really do some kind of a changes. And sometimes there is a what I call a little bit of a, not too much, but a little bit of a changes which are required demographically, which means that India might need something, colors which would move better, or things of that nature, which needs entirely. There is also an approval process, which is very important, because the approval process for good quality licenses also sometimes 15-day cycle. And you are very close to your launch, and then 15 days you have to go for approval. And then once approval comes in, then you can put into production, then to this entire thing. So you need to really do this window absolutely right. And that's where a lot of companies I've seen have faltered. They've got great licenses, but the timing was bad, the planning was bad. So they were not able to maximize, hence they had to pay MGs, and then they drop out for the next season. Good companies like Harsh companies, so they've mastered that. That's why every single licensee is coming to them, because they are on the other one side building a good distribution, big distribution for taking the program much more faster, and they're becoming more and more obvious choice for people to take official merchandise. On second side, they have actually did a lot of planning and capability. So let's go into futuristic thinking. Let's talk about Harsh next 2 to 3 years. How do you really see what is going to happen? And is there a change, especially with this made in India kind of a thing, Atmanirbhar or things of that nature? Is the customer also moving towards a lot of Indian IPs? Is there possibility like that, or they are not cool enough for people to really do that, or they're not developed enough. Sometimes we just say it's not really entire thing, but I also should say that a lot of Indian IPs sometimes are not very developed. Even we struggled at Bradford when we started IPL. Initially, apart from the logo, we had nothing, right? So how do we really build those whole programs in a manner? So how this is looking like, and how this is changing?
Sure. So I think I'll break that up into two parts. One is in general, where are we headed, right, for the next couple of years? Like I mentioned, we're definitely on a massive upward sort of trend as far as licensing in India is concerned, and I only see that increasing. Uh, as mentioned, the barrier for entry to start your own website or to start your own merchandise brand is fairly low as of now. So I definitely do see a lot more brands getting into the licensed merchandise space. What regarding the Indian IPs, right? I think the third point that you mentioned, where I think the biggest gap right now is not the demand for Indian IPs, but the fact that we've not developed it as well, right? If you look at a Marvel or a DC, these guys have been around for the last 70, 80, probably more years, right? They've invested billions of dollars in their comics, in creating that sort of franchise, creating the demand. You have movies, you have global partners across hundreds of countries, right? So I mean, essentially today when I'm selling an Iron Man T-shirt to you, I have to spend my money only on creating a great design and marketing it. I don't have to spend that money educating you that, hey Gaurav, here's an Iron Man T-shirt. Iron Man is a cool superhero, right? I think Disney's already invested billions of dollars and decades of work and effort into making Iron Man a cool product and a cool character for you to buy. So I think it's very important. I think for if we want to create local homegrown IPs, right, for us to invest that kind of time. I think the IPL is a great example, like you mentioned, where in the first couple of seasons, right, I think merchandise was not really a big selling point. I think most people or most teams only sold the jersey that the players were actually wearing, right? But there was no concept of fan merchandise or licensed merchandise. Definitely not at the scale we see today. But again, the IPL teams over the last 12 to 13 seasons have invested a lot of money in building that sort of rapport with fans, creating that personality, creating that voice for their teams. And now you have fans. I mean, honestly, we've seen the IPL sales from 2017 when we first started to 2020. We started with two teams in 2017, KKR and Kings 11. This year we have four teams: MI, CSK, KKR, and Rajasthan. In the last 3.5, 4 years, right, we've seen more than a 50x jump in revenue, purely because of the amount of effort the teams are also putting, educating fans about merchandise, educating fans that this is the place where you buy official merchandise, because fake merchandise again is a massive, massive problem. So I think the only way we can actually create a solid Indian IP that's marketable is if you are willing to invest those 5 or 10 years or 15 years of creating that sort of relationship with fans and creating the desire for fans, where after 15 years, right, your fans will just want to buy their product themselves. You don't have to educate them after 10 or 15 years. But I think that's the biggest sort of gap that I currently see.
Absolutely, and I completely agree with you. We've struggled with a lot of Bollywood IPs. We have struggled with Bollywood superhero IPs, because what happens, one, they don't understand the timing. They're more driven from the movie or the content, and they don't really understand how licensing program has to be done. And second, the whole application of the program is not very well defined. It's not the and that's something which is missing, and that's why they are not able to maximize. Even if you look at brands like Krish, which came in from Ritik, had no impact. I mean, if you really ask, if there was hardly any merchandise sold, and while they
True.
wanted to do that, and same thing happened with a lot of other movies which came in, and Salman did a lot of products, and they all were not able to connect with the audience. Now, this is nothing to do with the fan following these stars have, or the Indian distribution. Rather, if you really see, for last 15 years, international content has not even got a shelf space in India to sell their content and distribute.
True.
We talk to pictures, we talk to other pictures. They don't get a weekend. They don't get a weekend because Indian movies were so much. But otherwise, we're not able to do that. IPL also was a shame initially, because they were not really able to understand. Now, I think that they've understood. I think I still feel that there are under 60 leagues which have no ability to really create their aspiration. They're
True.
popular. Being popular doesn't make any sense to me, because popular can really would not be still aspirational. You
Sure.
can be very sport, but people still don't want to wear you. They don't want to flaunt in the evening. They don't want to show their friends that they have got that. And that's a very, very structure. And I think another thing which is very important for our audience, when you do a merchandising planning and or a merchandising structure, and you want to take these brands, you need
Sure.
to divide four categories. One category is what I call the destination product. Like for today, Soul Store has a destination, which means that any international merchandise, you can come to that. That's very big window they opened up. Second is specialty. They would be good at something which they would have the maximum range or something like that. So if I was doing superheroes, I would go to them and say, I will find everything possible, right?
True.
So they address that very clear specialty on that. Third is seasonal. It's very seasonal. IPL is on. Season would really pick up for that. And fourth is impulse. You go there and you like this Friends T-shirt because it was cool and it was just classic and you can wear it anytime. So that's kind of a product. So how do you really place this? This is 4 blocks needs to be done. I'll maybe take 1 or 2 more questions and before we end this diving. So as a business now,
Sure.
you have actually ventured into a business which is a merchandise, official merchandise business. What is the future of the company? How the Soul Store looks like as a value building over the time, and what is the future? Is it going to be tomorrow maybe a physical store coming in for Soul Store where all the physical touch and feel, the quality and everything has to be done, or anything which is coming in your way, or you feel that this is the way it needs to be done, or how the business which you feel from today where you are is going to be next 3 to 5 years?
Okay. It's a tough question, but I think a couple of major focuses of ours, right, over the next, say, 2 to 3 to 5 years. Physical stores. So actually, since you mentioned that, we actually have 3 offline stores in Mumbai itself. We launched our first offline store, in fact, just last year in May 2019 at Linking Road, Bandra. That was honestly, it was a very, very big gamble for us because we had been online for about 6 years by then, 6.5 years. We were not really sure what to expect from an offline store. Will it work? Will it not work? What kind of rent is the right amount of rent? Do you make money? Do offline stores not make money? We kind of just dived in, not knowing exactly what to expect. Luckily for us, again, it did really, really well. It's like the Friends version of our offline store. It did really, really well. It was operationally profitable from the first month itself. So we actually opened a second offline store this Jan at Viviana Mall, Thane. That store again has been profitable since month 1, which is why we now recently opened our third store at Kolaba in August. We actually wanted to open it in April during the summer months, which are our peak months. We also wanted to kind of time it with the IPL because that would have been a good sort of boost for us. Unfortunately, things obviously kind of didn't go as per plan, and we ended up launching it in August. But for the next couple of years, right? Yes, we are aggressively looking to expand our retail footprint. Similar to licensing, we are very, very clear that our offline stores are not just a branding destination for us, but they also have to be profitable, right? We do not want to burn money just having billboards across the country that are not making sense. Luckily for us, I think the one thing that works for us again is when people enter our store, right? The look and feel is of a very, very classy, very, very premium store. And when people then see the price points of the products, right, they're really, really happy because they entered the store thinking it's a much more expensive store. So I think that sweet spot between a great product, a great quality and design, and at a price which is not very, very expensive for customers, right? I think the sort of coming together of these 2 or 3 factors is what has really, really helped us. One more big thing that we are looking forward to for the next couple of years is a much stronger focus on women's specific women's products, right? For the first 4 or 5 years, we were largely a t-shirt brand. Our t-shirts were unisex, so we had one sort of design, one style, one fit for men and women. But almost about 40 to 45% of our website transacting audience is women, right? So in the last 6 to 12 months, we've put a lot more emphasis on launching a lot more women's products. They've been hugely, hugely successful on our website. Every single time we launch a new women's product or style is almost sold out within the first couple of days. So I definitely see that as a core focus of ours going forward. I also think that there is probably this misconception that, when you see superheroes and you see cricket and you see wrestling and other stuff, there is usually that sort of preconceived notion that, okay, this is probably like a guy's brand, right? Or usually guys would be the ones buying these kind of products and these kind of IPs. I think we've realized over the last 12 months that sort of idea is honestly completely wrong. There is a massive, massive market and a massive demand of women who want these kind of products. So I think that is definitely going to be our focus over the next 2 to 3 years. And like you mentioned, we definitely see ourselves expanding and getting a lot more licenses. Whether you're a cricket fan, you're a sports fan, entertainment fan, right? If there is any official merchandise that you want to buy in India, it should be available at the Soul Store. So that is in one line what our sort of vision as a company is.
No, I completely agree, and I like your retail strategy. Not, I think India has a potential to do 30 to 40 stores, especially in markets like Hyderabad, Bangalore, Pune, Delhi, Calcutta, maybe Chandigarh, places like that. Very interesting small stores, not too big, but experiential, where you can do launches, you can do a lot of pop-ups, a lot of activations, and so on and so forth. That's a good strategy to be in. And I completely agree that women is a big, big TG, and especially from not only from designs, but the right cuts and right structure, it can shift into becoming a big fashion label. And they
Sure.
are much, and they're much more faster in fast fashion, because fast fashion is something which you are part of. And fast fashion is more driven from women than men,
Sure.
because they tend to buy a lot but more frequently, and that's where you fit in as a business model. So I have a question from Mr. Vivekanand. This is an obvious question. It worries a lot of people who pay royalties on time and ethical business like yours, and do everything, and then they have a lot of counterfeits available in the market. And how do you deal with that, and how your licensors are supporting you in that? Because that's very big problem. You say you worked hard and launched a design. Like, we'll give you Bradford did one product called with H&M, which is just a Marilyn Monroe face on a white T-shirt. Now
Okay.
this is, it's the classic look with Marilyn Monroe. That product sold about a million pieces.
Wow.
H&M is a big wider distribution that just goes wild. And then we started seeing that a lot of people are just picking up these T-shirts from roads and markets and things that the designs became popular. How do you really control this situation, especially in business like yours?
Sure. So I think counterfeits is definitely the number one sort of problem that we always that we have faced. The biggest issue, like I said, right, even when we started off, I think this problem was that you either had a very, very expensive original product available, or you had like a counterfeit T-shirt for say 200, 250, 300 rupees, right? I think one thing that has really, really helped us beat the counterfeit market, not completely defeated, but definitely sort of hit the counterfeit market, is our price point, right? So the quality that we offer, the price point we offer, a lot of people who would have normally spent say 250, 300, 350 rupees on a fake t-shirt are willing to spend that extra 200, 250 rupees for a product that they know is significantly better as far as quality is concerned. So I think the Indian consumer, right, is definitely shifting, especially now, from a discount driven or a sales driven to a value driven proposition. So if you are able to get a significantly better product for 100, 200 rupees more, you're confident that this product or this t-shirt will last you for the next 4 or 5 years. I think a lot more customers are okay spending that 100, 200 rupees extra. Secondly, we do have a system with our licensors where regularly we do send them a list of, like fake links of various websites or various sellers on your marketplaces that are selling counterfeit products. But to be very honest, right, I think this is going to be a long-term sort of problem. I don't see counterfeits going away, but what I definitely do see is the Indian customer being able to distinguish between a fake and an original product. And this is where your licensor support becomes very important, right? Because tomorrow, if I'm a fan of a sports team, or for example a superhero movie, when the licensor is coming out and saying you can buy my official merchandise at the Soul store, I think that adds a lot more value to the buying customer. So I think making sure that your price point and your product quality adds significant value to your customer is probably the only way of beating fake merchandise right now.
Sure. Very helpful. Very helpful. I think any particular last comments, because we're closing the. Then any last comments which you would like to say for our audience, and anything which you want to talk about in your company, yourself, or licensing in general?
Sure. So I think it's a very, very exciting space, and if there's anyone who's looking to get into this, right, I definitely think this is the right time. It's always a good time. I think again over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen social media going up massively, right? It's a lot easier to target fans. It's a lot easier to put your point across, to kind of promote your products. But it's also very important to understand what kind of expectations you have, right? Like you mentioned, do not jump into a brand or do not jump into a license without being very, very clear of what kind of MGs you can pay. I think that's very, very important for brands to understand. Probably start slow, understand what is working, what is not working, what kind of price points work, what kind of designs work, what your customers' expectations are, and then slowly, slowly expand. But if you try going very, very aggressively in the start, I think you'll be in for a couple of surprises. So I think definitely feel that slow and steady is the way to go. And it's very, very important to make sure that you are conducting your market research. Before we started off also, right, we had a bunch of design that we had just made we spend a couple of months just sharing that with our friends, asking them to share it with their friends, seeing whether they like the products, do you like the designs, how much would you pay for this t-shirt, right? I think it's very, very important to understand what the demand is before you start adding to the supply. So that's probably the one feedback I'd give everyone who wants to get into this space.
Absolutely. Great advice. And you've done exceptional work. And I think you're one of the few companies, there are a lot of global companies very successful in this space, but seeing an Indian homegrown company which has taken global licenses and create a big platform, I think is a great journey. And this is something which we've been trying for last so many years. Franchiseindia actually invested in licensing in 2004, and
Wow.
it took 6 years for us to really start seeing some traction now.
Sure.
I think that now started coming to evolution, and it was always about good players like you who start creating an audience and start bringing great products and great designs, and it creates a great platform for a future trade. So thank you very much,
Awesome.
Harsh.
Thank you,
Really
Gaurav.
thanks from the entire team of Bradford. We really look forward for working with you closely on many other IPs coming in.
Definitely.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Thank
Thank
you so
you
much, Gaurav. Thank you.
friends for joining us. And if you have any questions for us, anything which we can do on helping you on your licensing program, or you want to know more about it, I'll put my email ID. If you have any questions, you can reach me direct, and we'll be more than happy to really take up all the questions for you.
Awesome. Thanks, Gaurav.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
See you.
Thanks.